narration recorded in the works of both Imam Bukhari and Muslim, there will be 7 persons who will be under the shade of Allah on the Day of Judgment. Among them is a person whose heart is attached to the masjid. As we explore the origins of our love for the Masaajid in Port Elizabeth, we retrace the steps of the early pioneers of our community who out of love established the first Masajid.
So moving forward, Uncle Yusuf, from Strand Street, I mean, for many years, for about 120 years, there was no remnants of Strand Street. You could not go, you wouldn't know where Strand Street was, and of course, things have changed over that period of time. But the masjid that was established after Strand Street Masjid
was the Grey Street Masjid, again as in center in town. So first the Strand Street Masjid, and then the Grey Street Masjid. And Abu Wahab Salih's uncle Abu Rafi, he was the first Imam of the Grey Street Masjid, which still stands today.
So we're speaking about a family that was very, very much involved and influential in establishment of a community, more than just a masjid.
Yes, and exactly your words is so true. Establish of a community, because even today's history, you know, the surname Rafi and the surname Salih is so important. I've done a family tree, and maybe if we have a time, I'll show it to you, but it's, you know, to spend a couple of days and so on. And you actually fit into that. Mm-hmm. And Abu Salih, out of his family tree, the Salihs came. Mm. And the Rafis came out of Abu Rafi. But strange enough, some of the people that's got surname got Salih. They originate out of Abu Rafi and not Abu Salih. So there is people that come out of Salih. But there is some, for example, I can tell you, you come out of, not out of Abu Salih, but out of Abu Rafi. And his kubur is the one
in the valley.
Valley, yeah. Abu Rafi and his wife Khadija, they Khamaninga, who passed away on pilgrimage.
Marshall, I'm gonna stop Uncle Yusuf there, because I see when we start diving into family trees and families, we might be ending much later than we had anticipated. So, 1894, Rudolph Street Masjid is established, yes. Masjid Abrar. 6 years later, in a very short period of time, Masjid Aziz, Pierce Street Masjid is established.
Yes, in a very short space of time, and as I said, basically there was nothing left of Muslim community life in the center of town. They're basically all in the southern area, southern, the suburbs, southern. And this is where Islam grew and united among the Muslims. But topic always come up, as you mentioned. If you look at in today's life, and you say, why is it two masajid so close to one another? Mm. But 50 years ago or 60 years ago was completely different. If you look at the street layout of what Port Elizabeth or Southend looked like 50 years ago, the apartheid era just completely wiped it out. Mm. You know, there were so many streets and alleys and you know, that separated the two masajids. You know, and you know, so there was enough community in Southend to actually for the masajid as such, but only one Jummah.
Only one Jummah?
Yes, on a rotational basis.
Okay.
You know, so it wasn't just we keep a Jummah and you keep it. It was on a rotational
Assumingly, the Muslim community that would fill the masjid during those times were not as big as they are today.
As today.
So you probably would only be able to fill one masjid at a time.
Yes. So Grey Street, Rudolph Street, Pierce Street, Grey Street, Rudolph Street, Pierce Street. So on a rotational basis, Jummah was kept.
And the next masjid, of course, that was established moved back closer to town, north end, Humphrey Street. But before we get there, of course, Masjid Aziz Pierce Street is not only significant by the fact that it was one of the early masjids in Port Elizabeth, but also there was a point where the masjid was going to be demolished by the apartheid government.
Yes. Oh, the Pierce Street has a very important history in the life of the Muslim, not in Port Elizabeth, but in South Africa, and the influence of what it had in South the world, because the apartheid government really wanted to demolish the masjid, you know. And oral history again was, you know, they actually said, we'll bulldoze the masjid. And there was people in the community, they said, if they do bulldoze it, we are prepared to go sleep in the masjid. And they can bulldoze it with us. But so strong was the iman in those days that we cannot destroy the house of Allah. And, you know, it was Port Elizabeth, then it went to Parliament. Some people say it went as far as United Nations. That at that point in time, it was established that no mosque shall be destroyed. You know, and the truth today, if you go to the south and you look towards town from Pier Street Masjid, you can still see the freeway.
Yeah, halfway built.
Halfway built because of Pier Street Masjid. You know?
So Pier Street was, to a certain extent, the litmus test of which the party government could test the Muslim community. If we could destroy this masjid, then we could destroy a number of masjids. We could have been Muir Street in District 6 or any other masajid across the country.
Yes.
So this was the case they won.
The one.
Sorry, rather the case they lost.
Lost, yeah. But that was truly, you know, and if you look at some of the development of Southend, and you will truly see when they built the freeways, you know, it was like they wanted the bulldozers, you know, next to the making the road like it must vibrate and let the masjid, you know, kind of crack and crumble, because it was sad to see it. That was just the masjid standing alone and the development of the roads taking place around it.
Masjid Aziz is the only.
It's an island.
It's an island. It's the
You know
only
what-
residentially used
Yes.
building in that space.
Now, if you look at the masjid, Pier Street Masjid, and you look at Rudolph Street Masjid still got a parking space. Pier Street, that's not a parking space. They took everything away, and that land belongs to the municipality in other words.
There were shops around the masjid.
Oh, yes. In actual fact, from the one corner, from South Beach Terrace where the masjid stood, Pier Street, to the next corner, South Union Street, that all belonged to the masjid. So there was a shop, and there's some businesses that actually, you know, paid rental to the masjid on that piece of land.
So Masjid Aziz was a self-sufficient masjid.
Yes, in those days already, yes. Yes, it was, yeah. You know.
So the other interesting thing, I think, looking at our history is the fact that the masajid reflect the diaspora of the community,
Yes.
its migration pattern,
Yes.
where Muslims set up. If you establish a community, you then automatically set up a masjid. And this is in keeping with the prophetic tradition. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he left Makkah Mukarramah, when he came to Medina Munawwara, the first thing he did was establish a masjid. So from that area, that cluster of Strand Street, Grey Street, Rudolph Street, Pier Street, we then see a masjid popping up in Humphrey Street,
Yes.
in north end side.
Yeah, so now the community spread, and you know, later on in 1880, around about that, the Indian community, and they most probably established themselves in the northern area. So that was also.
So Humphrey Street also a very significant masjid in our history.
In our
Port
history,
Elizabeth.
that you had to be established in that part of town. You know, so the community there also had to need of a Masaajid. And that's why
was
Islam was established. And that served not just Humphrey Street, because just remember now spread the way to Commercial Road, the
Yes.
Community Street,
The business area.
the business area there. But the people lived in that part of town, Sydenham and Sidwell and that, and they used Humphrey Street as the closest masjid that I could make use. You know.
Now, Yusuf, whilst we speak about the first masajid established in Port Elizabeth and Newtown as well, of course, with apartheid laws, the Muslims had to move out of South End as well as North End as well. And Masjid Taqwa in Galvin Park is probably the first masjid established with the diaspora of Muslims from the South End area to the northern areas where they were forced to move.
Yes. Well, yeah, the masjid is also, Taqwa has also got a lot of history behind it that we need to dwell in, but we're not. It actually started with with the spread of the town, and so the next portion, I would say, was the Muslim community of Shawdeville and Corson, you mustn't forget. And that is the beginning of Masjidul Taqwa.
Yes.
The Shawder Muslim Association needed a Masaajid.
As I understand it, it was a concession by that community that they wouldn't continue prospecting for an area that they would build a masjid, but they would focus their attention on Masjid Taqwa and
Masjid
Yellow Park. So
Taqwa.
it became sort of a collaboration between communities to identify a place
Yes,
to build a masjid.
build a masjid. And really, I mean, we as youngsters, my dad used to bring us over weekends to come and assist. We still were living in South End when Masjid Taqwa was already being established.
So you were, of course, one of the last families to leave South
To
End.
lived in South End, yeah. We moved out to in 1973.
That's quite late. It's
because,
quite late,
yeah,
yes.
very late. October, in actual fact, October 1973. And so we were quite late because you will find that the Southern community, Salt Lake and West End, but we came to live in the road here in South Sonyville. So it just shows how late we moved out of South End. So while we were still in South End, there was the beginning of Masjid Taqwa, you know, and being established in Govan Park, you know, yeah. So
And of course, I mean, the Muslim community throughout the northern areas would come there for Jummah.
For Jummah, yes, it was the only, yeah, you know, Masaajid in the apartheid era, really, you know, it was difficult times at that time, you know. People moving all over town, Berelsdorp, West End, and there was no masjid here at that time. You know, only Masaajid was the closest, was basically Masjid Taqwa.
Well, alhamdulillah, I mean, today we find Masajid in various parts of the north end. Today we at Masjid Sobirin in the Muslim library, reflecting on the history of South End, the Masajid. And alhamdulillah, this is a great favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whilst we reflect on our heritage and our heritage connected to the Masajid, I think it is worthwhile for us to pause for a moment to reflect on this great favor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Truly, to be connected to the masjid, to be able to frequent the masjid is a favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we may be commemorating Heritage Day in different forms. It might be in the form of having a braai, as South Africans love to do, or meeting the family. But let us take a moment, whilst having no specific religious importance in our lives, as a South African, appreciating the favor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for us in this country, reflect on what our connection still is to the masjid. Have we allowed the lockdown and COVID-19 to distort and fracture that relationship? And if so, are we able to rebuild that relationship,
that connection
with the masjid, inshallah? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq. Uncle Yusuf, so Jazakallah khairan so much for your time. And Jazakallah khairan for making the library available for us to do the shoot. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you good strength. A man who knows where he comes from, knows where he's going. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put you on the path to Jannah, inshallah, and you continue to serve the Muslim community. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.